Later in this video, I'm going to show you the exact trades that a Wall Street Bets user made to get the results you see on the screen. But first, if you want to get results like this, you either have to be a totally lucky retard or a literal prophet. So which of the two was this trader? Well, that's what we're going to explore today. Welcome back to Gigastonks. We're going to review the case of a DD nerd. We'll get into what DD is in a little bit. Made $400,000 in a single day and broke $1 million in his portfolio, all due to a really specific DD or a set of DDs that he had. So the user is Steve Dissot. We're just going to call him Steve in today's video.
Steve.
Okay? Stop calling me Steve.
I really need this credit, Steve. I cannot.
Stop calling me Steve.
Steve's part of a few communities, seemed like a pretty well-rounded guy, until he found Wall Street Bets a few months ago and didn't look back. Literally stopped posting in every other forum. It was pretty funny to see. DD is due diligence. Due diligence is essentially justifying why you are going into certain positions. Why are you selling a stock? Why are you buying a stock? Why are you buying calls or puts, etc.? What is your strategy? What is the reasoning behind it? So it is one level dialed back from just pure retardation, and it's a little bit more of a well thought out kind of plan. So there's 3 different due diligence sessions that we have here with Steve.
Stop calling me Steve.
The first one here is on February 21st, titled "The Sector You've Never Touched is a 10-Bagger." And he's got a few points here. As you can see, it is a ridiculously long post here on the left, so I just gave the cliff notes. The first is that the real mining play is not gold, but actually critical minerals like rare earths, lithium, and titanium, because the US desperately needs its own supply chain independent of China. Steve claims this is driven by geopolitics and national security, and there's also a lot of powerful players and firms involved. There's connections between Trump and TechMet, which is private, but Steve specifically invested in companies that would benefit from TechMet doing well. There's also federal funding to boost domestic US mining. Steve had an idea these kinds of things were going to happen before they actually did. Here are his positions. You can see that he has huge bets on American Battery, Caterpillar, and some other similar companies. He bet about $250,000, and he already at this point had $320K. So not bad. That's more than most of us here are making in an entire year. By March 5th, Steve comes back with a second due diligence about Blackrock and how they made a move on Panama ports. They're moving on mining and drilling next. The main theme is that Blackrock and Gina Rinehart, a specific billionaire and Australian mining magnate, Trump's ally, started aggressively buying stakes in key critical mineral companies right after the election. Blackrock allocated over 10% of their portfolio to companies like MP Materials, Quadruple U, LAC, Tesla, etc., framing it as part of BlackRock's broader strategy to dominate infrastructure and energy transition markets. Reinhardt specifically was one of the billionaires that invested in these companies, just like BlackRock, and she had really close ties with Trump. Steve also believed that there was some dramatic action benefiting MP and LAC specifically that was going to be imminent. While he didn't actually show his positions on this day because the images that he posted got deleted, there were some green days for most of the stocks that he was interested in that he posted in the comments. This led to the third due diligence session on April 3rd, which was just after Liberation Day. And the core idea here was that the trade war was opportunity. So now Steve is tripling down. And at this point, he already knows the tariffs are coming for sure. This was no longer speculation. This was the day after Liberation Day. Steve argued that it's forcing a shift towards boosting specific American industries, particularly those related to critical minerals and materials like rare earths, lithium, titanium. The problem is that China had a level of a stranglehold on a lot of these supply chains for these really critical minerals. And Steve argued that the U.S. needed to break this dependency for national security and economic reasons. So the play here was to bet specifically on domestic supply chains, U.S. or allied mining, processing, and manufacturing. Steve picked stocks specifically not just because they were a random energy sector company that were U.S. or allied based. He also wanted them to specifically be related to critical minerals. He wanted them to have government support. He wanted them to be politically connected to leaders or board members that were connected with Trump or his administration. He wanted interest from hedge funds and insiders. And finally, he wanted the companies to have solid fundamentals themselves. Now, this part's a little arguable, as we'll see later. Some of the other Wall Street Bets users did point out that there were some weak fundamentals for some of the companies, but overall, it seems like Steve did a really good job picking his stocks. There were 5 companies that Steve specifically went all in retarded on. They are firstly MP Materials, which does rare earth mining, processing, and magnets. Next is EF Energy Fuels, ticker UUUU, which did uranium and titanium. The third was Val or Valaris, which did deep sea mining infrastructure off of the offshore of Norway, which is actually pretty cool. The fourth one was ABAT, or the American Battery Technology Company, which did lithium battery and recycling. And then the fifth one was LAC, Lithium Americas, which did lithium batteries as well. So as we saw, Steve's whole play was built over the months, pretty much betting that the US government was going to take some form of action like tariffs or probes related to trade that would massively benefit domestic critical mineral companies compared to China. In early April, the White House finally announces a formal probe into tariffs specifically related to critical minerals, hitting the exact theme that Steve's entire multi-post DD was focused on. This sets the stage so beautifully for Steve.
Stop calling me Steve.
As he now proudly announces that the mines were calling, noting specifically that today he began to see a return of sizable scope. He only showed a screenshot of his holdings in MP, but he made over $400,000 in a day. Let's zoom that baby in a little bit. Here we can see that he's got a total value in MP alone of $761K, and he's got well over $1 million, including all of his other holdings. For anyone following his detailed posts, this $400,000 gain is pretty much an I told you so, the reward for going against the grain and doing this deep research on Wall Street Bets. But how much of this win was truly due diligence versus maybe just market timing or sector momentum or just luck? We're going to dig into that really quickly here in a mini analysis. First off, you need to give credit where it's due. The effort here is miles beyond the usual retarded, I see a green candle and I want to buy. There's some really strong points here as to the actual success that Steve achieved. Secondly, he did identify a major theme that the US push for domestic critical minerals was going to happen, and it was going to happen really soon. He also caught on really early with Blackrock and Reinhardt investing into specific stocks like MP Materials. Was this really true insight, or was this a little bit of confirmation bias happening after the fact? It's not really sure. This is not the most foolproof method in the world, but again, you really can't argue with the success that Steve had. Overall, I'm going to say that this is more of a skill than a luck kind of profit here for Steve. The comments overall were mixed, from jealousy to gratefulness to critique to complimenting him and calling him a scientist, which I thought was pretty funny because before Steve joined Wall Street Bets, he was in a lot of other forums, like I mentioned, one of them being Scholars. So what are some of the key takeaways here for us WSBers? The first thing is that not everything is actually priced in 100%. There are actually some ways that you can beat the market if you can see trends before the insiders and everybody else even notices them. However, it's not really easy, and Steve here is an example of someone who's really smart, has a PhD, did all his nerdy analysis, and then came out the other side filthy rich. The second takeaway is that there are varying levels of due diligence that you can do before you invest. You can go full retard because you think that this is going to be the next meme stock, or you can sit back and do a full observation and analysis of the market like Steve did. In either way, you may win, you may lose. That's the amazing thing about trading, especially in Wall Street Bets style. And then the third takeaway, I mean, this is just kind of a props to Steve here. To be honest, he's got $1 million plus in the bank now, and you and I don't. So we really don't have a lot of room to talk. That wraps up today's Gigastonks analysis. If you watched to the end, thank you so much. Drop in the comments below what you think MP Materials price point is going to be on April 30th. Right now it's $26.35. Whoever's the closest, I will give you a shout out. So make sure to comment that below. Also subscribe and tune in next time. Keep YOLOing.
Stop calling me Steve.